In every city, in every country, you'll find two kinds of people. One group rises, learns, and prospers. The other drifts, waiting for something to change. The truth is, most people are not broke because of a lack of money. They're broke because of a lack of understanding. You see, wealth is never created in your pocket first. It's created in your mind. You don't earn what you want. You earn what you are. Until you learn how to think differently, no amount of work, no number of hours, and no opportunity can make you rich. Most people chase money as if it's running away from them. But money doesn't run. It's attracted. It flows to those who have learned how to provide value, how to think independently, and how to master themselves. If you want more, you must become more. Look at the world around you. Every great success began with a single idea, an idea acted upon with discipline, consistency, and belief. But the average person never gives their ideas a chance. They wait for permission. They hope for luck. They look for shortcuts that don't exist. The mind is the greatest factory of wealth ever created. And yet, most people let it sit idle. They think about bills, not possibilities, about problems, not progress. What you dwell on, you attract. What you think about expands. That's why the poor stay poor. Not because they have nothing, but because they think like they have nothing. The rich aren't different because they're lucky. They're different because they understand one simple truth: money is a mirror. It reflects the value you bring to the world. Until you learn how to increase that value, to think, plan, and act with purpose, you'll keep trading time for just enough to survive. So the lesson is this: you will stay broke until you learn that wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you build. It's built with thought, with patience, and with discipline. Your outer world will never rise above your inner understanding the moment you begin to think differently. To see yourself not as a worker, but as a creator, not as a spender, but as a builder, everything changes. The same world, the same job, the same opportunities, but now seen through a wealth-conscious mind. That's when money begins to move toward you, because you finally understand the law of success isn't pursued. It's attracted by the person you become. Every fortune ever created began as a thought. Every empire, invention. An idea that changed the world was born in a single human mind. Yet, most people never truly understand that their mind is the starting point of all wealth. They believe money comes from a job, from opportunity, from luck, or from some mysterious outside force. They work hard, they struggle, they chase, but nothing changes. The truth is, wealth starts in the mind. Your external circumstances are nothing more than a mirror reflecting what you have accepted as true inside yourself. If you think like the broke, you live like the broke. If you think like the rich, you begin to attract the patterns, ideas, and opportunities that create abundance. A person who believes they are limited will always find proof of that limitation. They'll look at their paycheck and say, "This is all I can make." They'll look at their education and say, "This is all I'm qualified for." They'll look at their life and say, "This is just how things are." And because they believe it, they create it again and again. On the other hand, a person who decides that wealth is a state of growth, not luck, begins to see everything differently. Where others see obstacles, they see chances to learn. Where others see risk, they see possibility. The wealthy mind is not measured by how much money is in the bank, but by how much belief and vision it can hold in the face of doubt. Most people underestimate how powerful their thoughts are. They believe thinking is something casual, something harmless. They think about problems, scarcity, and fear, and then they wonder why those things show up in their lives. The mind is not a toy, it's a tool. And like every powerful tool, it can build or destroy. When your thoughts are dominated by lack, you create a life of lack. When your thoughts are guided by purpose, by value, by gratitude, your actions begin to shift, your habits change, and your outcomes follow. Wealth is not something you pursue outside yourself. It's something you grow from within until the world has no choice but to reflect it back. You can give two people the same job, the same resources, and the same 24 hours in a day, and one will remain stuck while the other will rise. The difference isn't effort, it's mindset. The person with a poor mindset believes the job is all there is. The one with a wealthy mindset sees the job as a stepping stone, a chance to learn, to build, to connect. The poor-minded person spends money as fast as it comes, believing more will never arrive. The wealthy-minded person respects every dollar, using it as a servant to build more opportunity. The outer world rewards the inner world. Every promotion, every business, every creative breakthrough comes from a shift that began in thought long before it appeared in reality. When you begin to take full responsibility for your thinking, you reclaim your power. You stop blaming conditions. Stop waiting for luck. Stop believing that someone else must change before you can. You start to see that the thoughts you nurture each day are the seeds of your future. If you plant ideas of scarcity, you harvest struggle. If you plant ideas of abundance, gratitude, and service, You harvest opportunity. Your mind is like fertile soil. It doesn't care what you plant. It simply grows whatever you feed it. That is why guarding your thoughts is not a luxury. It's a necessity. The wealth you desire is not hiding from you. It's waiting for you to become the kind of thinker who can handle it. Money without understanding disappears. But when you develop a wealthy mind, one that knows how to create, manage, and multiply, your financial life begins to stabilize and expand. You begin to act differently, not out of desperation, but out of clarity. You make decisions that align with growth instead of fear. You surround yourself with people who think on a higher level. You start to see time as an asset, learning as an investment, and value as the currency that drives all true wealth. When you understand that wealth begins in the mind, every excuse loses its power. It no longer matters where you started, who doubted you, or what resources you have. What matters is the image you hold of yourself. See yourself as capable, resourceful, and valuable. And the world begins to respond accordingly. You start to attract ideas that match that belief. You begin to take actions that lead to new results. Slowly but surely, your external reality adjusts to fit your internal identity. Wealth is simply the natural result of a mind trained to see opportunity where others see limitation. Most people try to change their lives by changing their surroundings, their jobs, their relationships, or their routines. But they skip the one change that makes all the others work, the change in thinking. The person who learns to think rich can lose everything and rebuild it. The one who thinks poor can win the lottery and lose it all. The difference isn't money, it's mindset. And once you learn that wealth begins with how you think, you stop chasing and start creating. You stop hoping for change and start becoming the cause of it. The mind is the starting point of all riches, and until you learn to master it, you'll always find yourself wondering why the same struggles return. No matter how much effort you give, money does not respond to need, it responds to value. People spend their entire lives chasing it, hoping that one more job, one more deal, or one more stroke of luck will finally make things different. Yet the truth is simple and unforgiving. Money is not something you chase. It is something you attract. It moves toward those who have learned how to make themselves valuable, how to think differently, and how to become the kind of person worth investing in. The poor mind believes that effort alone creates wealth, that working harder and longer will somehow produce a breakthrough. But effort without understanding is wasted motion. Wealth comes not to those who chase, but to those who attract by becoming indispensable, by mastering their craft, and by solving problems others cannot or will not solve. When you chase money, you push it away. You communicate to the world a sense of desperation, a lack of belief that you can create value on your own terms. Chasing money means you see it as scarce, something you must run after before it disappears. But the truth is, money is abundant. It circulates endlessly through the hands of those who know how to create and deliver something of worth. The people who attract wealth don't run after it. They magnetize it. They do this by focusing on contribution, by improving what they can offer, and by building trust that makes others want to work with them. The one who provides genuine value never has to beg for reward. The world pays them gladly because they make life easier, better, or more meaningful for others. The tragedy is that most people have been trained from childhood to think like chasers. They are taught to find jobs, not opportunities, to seek security, not growth. They trade their time for money, believing that is the only way. But trading time for money creates a ceiling that can never be broken, because time is limited. Those who attract wealth understand leverage, that the real power lies in ideas, systems, and service. They learn how to multiply their efforts through knowledge, creativity, and strategy. They stop asking, how can I make more money? And start asking, how can I provide more value? That one shift changes everything, because the first question comes from lack, while the second comes from abundance. You can always spot a person who chases money. They make quick decisions for short-term gain. They jump from one thing to another, and they constantly look for the next big break. But wealth builders think long-term. They build relationships, not transactions. They invest in skills, not gimmicks. They understand that money is the shadow of service. Wherever true service goes, money follows. The one who chases is exhausted and empty, always running, always anxious. The one who attracts moves with calm confidence, because they know that value never goes unnoticed. When you stop chasing and begin to attract, you also stop being controlled by money. You no longer see it as a master, but as a servant. You understand that money is nothing more than a certificate of appreciation, society's way of saying thank you for the value you've delivered. The more value you bring, the more appreciation you receive. That means the surest way to improve your financial condition is to improve yourself, not by wishing for more, but by becoming more skilled, more knowledgeable, more disciplined, more valuable. Every book you read, every habit you build, every hour spent mastering your craft makes you a stronger magnet for wealth. The people who attract money never wonder if they'll succeed. They know that success is inevitable if they continue to grow. They understand that wealth is not a destination but a reflection of who they have become. When you develop character, vision, and persistence, money becomes the natural consequence of those qualities. It begins to find you through opportunities, through people, through unexpected openings that match the level of value you now represent. The law is simple. You can't out-earn your mindset, and you can't attract beyond your level of value. So if you want more, you must give more. If you want to rise higher, you must serve deeper. It takes courage to stop chasing. It takes patience to build something that attracts. But every moment spent improving yourself compounds in ways you can't yet see. The world begins to open doors for you because it recognizes something rare, a person who is not driven by desperation but by purpose. When your motive shifts from taking to giving, from chasing to creating, from scarcity to abundance, you begin to feel a quiet power working in your favor. Opportunities come not because you forced them, but because you became worthy of them. The one who learns to attract understands that wealth has its own rhythm. It doesn't respond to hurry or fear. It flows naturally toward those who align with it, through focus, service, and mastery. When you become someone who consistently creates value, who thinks independently, and who treats money as energy rather than salvation, you step into a new kind of freedom. You no longer need to chase what is already making its way toward you. You simply keep growing, keep giving, and keep becoming more valuable. Because in the end, money always finds its way to the mind that knows how to attract it. Most people spend their entire lives trading their hours for dollars, believing that the only way to make a living is to keep working harder and longer. They measure their worth by how much time they give, not by how much value they create. But the truth is that time is the most limited resource you have, while value is limitless. The poor trade time for money, the wealthy trade value for freedom. This one shift separates those who remain stuck from those who rise. The moment you stop asking how many hours you can work and start asking how much value you can produce, your life begins to move in an entirely new direction. When you trade time for money, you trap yourself in a cycle that never ends. You wake up, go to work, earn just enough to survive, and repeat it day after day. Your income is capped because your hours are capped. No matter how hard you work, you cannot expand the day beyond 24 hours. That is why the people who build wealth stop selling their time and start multiplying it. They create systems, products, and ideas that continue to work even when they do not. They build value once, and it pays them again and again. They understand that true wealth is built when your ideas, skills, and contributions earn for you even in your absence. The person who only knows how to work for money will always depend on someone else to provide opportunity. But the one who learns how to create value becomes their own opportunity. They stop waiting for raises, promotions, or external validation. They build something of worth that others willingly pay for. A service, a skill, an insight, or an experience. They focus on impact instead of effort, results instead of hours. This way of thinking frees them from the endless grind, because they no longer need to exchange their time to survive. They've learned how to make their value work for them. The world rewards value, not effort. The person who creates something that saves others time, money, or energy will always earn more than the one who simply puts in long hours. Look around. The inventors, creators, and entrepreneurs who changed the world didn't do it by working more hours than everyone else. They did it by producing something that mattered. They built leverage through ideas. They multiplied their effort through systems. They learned how to detach income from time. The average person can work 40 hours a week for 40 years and still struggle, but the one who understands value can create something in a month that pays for decades. To make this shift, you must begin by asking different questions. Instead of asking how to make more money, ask how to help more people. Instead of asking how to work more hours, ask how to create something that continues working after you stop. This requires creativity, discipline, and courage, because it's easier to follow a schedule than to build something new. But once you start thinking in terms of value, you begin to see opportunities everywhere. Every problem in the world is a door waiting to be opened by someone willing to provide a solution. The one who sees that truth and acts on it is never broke for long. Trading time for money also limits your growth because it trains you to think small. You start measuring everything in hours and wages instead of vision and value. But when you think in value, you begin to think bigger. You start planning for impact, scalability, and long-term contribution. You start asking how to serve 10 people, then 100, then 1,000. Your income grows not because you work more, but because you help more. That's how the wealthy think, in terms of reach, not routine. They build systems that multiply their value far beyond their personal presence. A worker earns once for each task completed, but a creator earns every time their creation is used. A worker's income stops when they stop working, but a thinker's income continues to flow because they built something lasting. The choice between the two paths begins in the mind. You can spend your life renting out your time, or you can spend it building something that sets you free. That doesn't mean quitting your job. It means changing how you think about what you do. Every job, every skill, every opportunity is a chance to build leverage, to learn, to grow, to add more value than you are paid for, until your value exceeds your position. The people who create freedom through value live by a different rhythm. They invest their time today to multiply it tomorrow. They spend hours learning skills, developing systems, and creating products that outlive their effort. They focus on assets instead of wages, ownership instead of dependency. They see time not as something to spend, but as something to invest. Every hour put into developing themselves multiplies across their lifetime. When you learn to trade value for freedom, you step out of the cycle of survival. You begin to see your time as sacred, your potential as limitless, and your ideas as the true source of wealth. You stop asking how to make a living and start asking how to make a difference. That difference, that impact, becomes your income. The world doesn't pay for time. It pays for what that time produces. And when you finally understand that, you stop selling hours and start building something that earns, even while you sleep. Discipline is the bridge between intention and achievement. It's the invisible line that separates those who dream from those who do. Many people talk about success, read about success, and wish for success, but only a few ever live it. The difference is not in talent, luck, or opportunity. It's in discipline. Discipline creates prosperity because it turns direction into progress and desire into results. Without it, even the best ideas fade away. With it, even the smallest efforts compound into greatness. Discipline is the quiet force that keeps you moving when motivation has disappeared. That makes you act when your emotions tell you to stop. Wealth does not belong to the smartest or the fastest. It belongs to the most disciplined. Most people want quick results. They start a plan, feel excited for a few days, and then quit when it gets uncomfortable. They confuse excitement with progress, but real growth happens in the moments of boredom and resistance, the times when it would be easier to stop. The disciplined mind understands that consistency is the ultimate advantage. Small, repeated actions performed with purpose create a power that the undisciplined will never know. Every great achievement is nothing more than consistent discipline applied over time. Discipline is not punishment, it is freedom. It's the ability to make choices that serve your future instead of satisfying your impulses. The undisciplined person is a slave to mood and circumstance. They only act when they feel ready. The disciplined person acts because they have decided to, regardless of how they feel. They understand that emotions are temporary, but consequences are lasting. Discipline gives you control over your destiny because it allows you to keep your word to yourself. Once you master that, you become unstoppable. In every field, business, art, fitness, finance, the top performers are not always the most gifted. They're the most consistent. They show up every day, refine their skills, review their results, and adjust. They know that growth is a slow climb, not a sudden leap. They have learned to love the process because they know that the process is the path. Most people spend their lives starting over, jumping from one thing to another, always searching for a secret formula. But discipline is the formula. It is the unseen ingredient behind every visible success. When you are disciplined, you develop trust in yourself. You no longer need to rely on outside motivation because you've built an inner standard. You begin to respect your time, your goals, and your future. You stop negotiating with laziness, fear, and distraction. The person without discipline looks for shortcuts, but shortcuts cost more in the end. They rob you of the strength and skill that come from staying the course. The disciplined person, on the other hand, builds power with every repetition. Each day of consistency strengthens their focus, sharpens their thinking, and multiplies their results. Money itself is attracted to discipline. It doesn't stay where it isn't respected. Those who handle small amounts wisely are trusted with more. Those who act impulsively lose what they earn. Discipline teaches you to manage, to plan, to save, to invest, not just money but time and energy. It teaches patience, and patience builds wealth. Every wealthy person, every successful business, every enduring legacy is built on systems of discipline. Without them, chaos takes over, and chaos always leads to loss. Discipline also guards you against the illusions of ease. The world will constantly tempt you with comfort, distraction, and the promise of effortless success. But there is no substitute for focused effort sustained over time. The undisciplined chase trends, while the disciplined build foundations. The undisciplined want applause, while the disciplined want mastery. When you choose discipline, you trade momentary pleasure for lasting satisfaction. You stop asking for life to be easy and start preparing yourself to be strong. There will always be days when nothing seems to work, when progress feels invisible. That is where discipline proves its worth. Because discipline doesn't care about how things look today. It's built on faith that effort compounds. It's knowing that each action, no matter how small, is a brick in the structure of your future. The undisciplined person waits for the right moment, but the disciplined person creates it. Every great turning point in life begins with a moment of discipline. The moment when you decide to do what's necessary instead of what's convenient. Discipline is the art of alignment, aligning your actions with your intentions. It teaches you that success is not one big act but thousands of small, invisible choices made consistently. It makes you reliable, predictable in your progress, steady in your pursuit. The world begins to trust the discipline because they deliver, not occasionally, but always. That trust becomes opportunity, that opportunity becomes reward, and that reward becomes wealth. The discipline build not just fortunes, but character. And character is the kind of wealth that never disappears. Every thought you think is a seed, and every seed eventually produces a harvest. The conditions of your life are not random. They are the reflection of what has been planted and nurtured in your mind. What you dwell on, you attract. What you believe, you become. Your outer world mirrors your inner world with exact precision. The person who constantly thinks about problems will find more problems. The one who focuses on possibilities will begin to see doors open where others see walls. The mind is not a passive observer, it is the architect of your experience. Every word, every image, every belief you allow to take root shapes the reality that follows. The average person moves through life unaware of this power. They think thoughts of fear, scarcity, doubt, and limitation, never realizing they are programming their future with every repetition. They allow their minds to replay mistakes, to dwell on what they lack, to anticipate failure before even trying. They live in a loop, attracting the same struggles, the same disappointments, the same results, because their thoughts never change. The person who understands that thoughts create conditions learns to treat thinking as a sacred act. They guard their mind with the same care a gardener gives to precious soil, planting only what they wish to see grow. When you begin to think differently, you start to live differently. It doesn't happen overnight, because habits of thought take time to rewire. But every conscious choice to replace fear with faith, negativity with gratitude, and doubt with confidence reshapes the foundation of your reality. Thoughts lead to emotions, emotions lead to actions, and actions create results. It all begins with what you allow yourself to dwell on. You cannot think like a victim and live like a victor. You cannot fill your mind with scarcity and expect abundance to follow. The law is constant as within, so without. Every successful person, every innovator, every creator you admire began by mastering their inner dialogue. They refused to think small even when the world around them was small. They chose belief when there was no proof, persistence when there was no progress. They visualized outcomes long before they appeared, and because they did, they created the conditions that made those outcomes possible. The power of thought is not in wishful dreaming, but in direction. The mind focused on growth, learning, and contribution begins to align every action toward those ends. It attracts ideas, people, and events that match its frequency. The undisciplined mind attracts confusion. The focused mind attracts clarity and opportunity. You can look at two people with the same background, same education, and same circumstances, and yet one will rise while the other remains stuck. The difference lies in what they consistently think about. One spends their energy imagining what could go wrong, the other imagining what could go right. One fills their mind with limitation, the other with possibility. The same world, two different outcomes, shaped entirely by the pattern of their thinking. What you hold in your mind with emotion and belief becomes magnetized. It draws to you the experiences that confirm your thoughts, good or bad. That is why controlling your thoughts is not just about positivity, it's about responsibility. Every time you catch yourself focusing on lack, you reinforce it. Every time you focus on abundance, you amplify it. The universe does not respond to your wishes, it responds to your vibration, the frequency of your thoughts and feelings. If you think about struggle all day, you'll unconsciously act in ways that perpetuate struggle. If you think about opportunity, you'll start to notice things you never saw before. Your perception expands, your confidence strengthens, and your behavior shifts. The same person, the same day, but a completely different outcome. All because of a change in thought. Your thoughts also influence how others respond to you. People are naturally drawn to those who think with confidence and clarity. When your thinking is aligned with purpose, you speak differently, you carry yourself differently, you attract trust and respect. But when your thinking is filled with self-doubt, you project uncertainty, and the world mirrors it back. You cannot hide the quality of your thoughts. They radiate through your tone, your actions, and your energy. To change your outer world, you must first take command of your inner one. Begin by observing what you think about most. Notice the stories you repeat to yourself, the ones that tell you what's possible and what's not. Every belief you hold either expands your life or limits it. Challenge the ones that keep you small. Replace the language of "I can't" with "How can I?" Replace "I'm not enough" with "I'm becoming more every day." Each new thought rewires a pathway in your brain, strengthening the identity of the person you are growing into. Thinking is not a passive process, it is creation in motion. The moment you decide to think intentionally, you take control of your destiny. You stop being a product of circumstance and become the author of your conditions. Life begins to align with the vision you hold in your mind. Your relationships shift, your opportunities expand, and your results begin to mirror the clarity of your inner picture. You no longer wonder why certain things happen. You understand that everything happening around you is the echo of what has been happening within you. You cannot earn beyond what you have become. The level of your income, your influence, and your success will always match the level of your personal growth. People often chase higher pay, better jobs, or bigger opportunities without realizing that those things are only attracted to who they are, not what they want. To earn more, you must become more. To attract more, you must evolve. The outer world expands in direct proportion to your inner development. Every breakthrough in life begins not with better circumstances, but with a better version of yourself. Most people try to change their results without changing their mindset. They want new outcomes but keep thinking in the same way that created the old ones. They focus on what to get instead of who to become. They try to add success on top of old habits, old fears, and old limitations. But real success doesn't work that way. The universe only gives more to those who have grown enough to handle more. If you want to rise, you must first raise your standards, your discipline, your attitude, and your understanding. Growth is not an option, it's the price of elevation. Personal development is the foundation of every form of wealth. Skills, mindset, and discipline are the real assets that produce lasting success. You can give a person a fortune, but if their thinking hasn't changed, they'll lose it. You can give someone the best opportunity, but if they lack the inner structure to sustain it, it will collapse. The difference between those who grow richer and those who stay stuck lies in how much they invest in themselves. The world pays for value, and the only way to increase your value is to expand your mind. The more you learn, the more you earn, not just financially, but in confidence, perspective, and peace. Becoming more means developing awareness of how you think, how you react, and how you manage your time. It means studying success, learning from mistakes, and intentionally sharpening your abilities. It means reading, reflecting, and surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to think higher. Growth is uncomfortable because it demands that you leave behind parts of yourself that no longer serve you. But without that discomfort, you remain stagnant, repeating the same year again and again, mistaking movement for progress. The ones who keep growing understand that every next level requires a new version of them. When you become more, you naturally attract better opportunities because your energy changes. You start to think with clarity, speak with confidence, and act with conviction. You begin to see solutions instead of problems and possibilities instead of limits. People sense that difference. They want to work with you, trust you, and follow your lead. Growth gives you presence, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that commands respect. The moment you evolve beyond your old patterns, life starts responding to your new vibration. It's as if the world begins to rearrange itself to match the person you have become. You cannot grow without discipline. Growth doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. It requires deliberate effort, the willingness to read when you'd rather relax, to practice when you'd rather quit, to stay focused when distraction calls your name. The people who achieve greatness aren't superhuman, they're simply consistent. They treat self-improvement as a daily responsibility, not an occasional activity. They know that every day they skip growth is a day they fall behind. To them, learning is not a phase, it's a lifestyle. They understand that what they don't yet know is costing them far more than they realize. Growth also requires humility. You can't become more if you already believe you know everything. The closed mind resists learning and therefore resists progress. The open mind seeks wisdom, feedback, and challenge. It welcomes correction because it understands that awareness is the first step toward advancement. When you embrace growth, failure no longer frightens you. Every mistake becomes a lesson. Every obstacle becomes a teacher. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That one shift turns every setback into a stepping stone. Becoming more also means mastering your emotions. Emotional control is one of the highest forms of growth. It allows you to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly when others panic, and to act with purpose instead of reaction. The person who cannot control their emotions will always sabotage their own progress. The one who can remain centered through chaos gains an advantage that few ever reach. That composure, that inner stability, attracts leadership, trust, and success. The higher you rise, the more this inner strength matters. Everything in your life is a reflection of who you are becoming. Your finances mirror your habits. Your relationships mirror your energy. Your results mirror your discipline. To change any part of your life, you must first change the person at the center of it. Growth isn't just about learning new things. It's about unlearning old patterns. It's about shedding fear, ego, and self-doubt so that your real potential can emerge. Every day offers a choice, to stay the same or to become more. The person who chooses growth every day, even in small ways, will eventually live a life that others can only imagine.